loosely translates as the, and tone loosely translates as the self, the inner self, the self in power. And so Ka-ton is the real self, what Rojas sometimes calls the integrity self. It's the self in power, real, honest, actual, without all the lies and distraction. It's what you're looking for. If you think of yourself as a miner looking for a valuable gem or someone on a quest for the Holy Grail, in this path, the Holy Grail we're looking for is that Ka-ton, the integrity self. And power is nothing more nor less than to find that integrity self and to be it. Now, if you're a white belt and you haven't been doing this for very long, your idea of self may not be as developed as it will be someday. You just kind of have a feeling that, well, you're a basically good person and you're curious and you like this and this and this. That's okay. If you can find even a small idea of who you are and hold that, that's what I would call power. But to avoid this panic word, I will use the ancient term Ka-ton, the real self, the deep self. Why does it matter? Who cares? Who needs power? Well, there are computers here, cameras, lights. If there were no power coming into this house, it wouldn't matter how good your computers were or how nice your lights were. Power is the potential to get work done. Power is the potential to make things happen. If you want to start a new career, if you want to be more confident, if you want to get a date for Saturday night, next Saturday, clearly, because you're here this Saturday, right? If you want to make a new tool or new toy, without some degree of power, all you can do is lay in bed and wish. You'd never be able to go to bed. You'd never be able to do anything. Power is the potential to make things happen. So when we find this integrity self and live from it, we start finding an energy that comes up and can be expressed in our lives. That allows us to do things, to be things, to grow and change and develop. And this is what allows us to become what we want, to do what we want, to have change, power, potential, life, substance. This is why we need the Ka-ton. And when that power comes up, maybe deep inside you know who you are and you don't like bars, but somebody asks you to go to a bar and you don't want to disappoint them. You want them to like you, so you go with them. You're not actually lacking power there. You looked inside and said, nope, I'm not a person who likes bars. They're noisy and obnoxious and full of drunk people. What you're lacking is integrity. This is the second of the terms from last week, power and integrity. The integrity, again, I'll give you an old term, that is ka-mai. It might best be translated as the making. Mai is making or creating, whether that's making thoughts, making words, making ideas. It's the making. And so when you take the Ka-ton and you express it from here, you act and behave and express in harmony with the Ka-ton. That is Ka-mai, that is integrity. And so if I take the English words out of the picture and give you some much older words, you don't have any baggage attached to those. And it may be that as you practice with those words, it will get easier to do this, to work with it. So, I'd like to spend 3 or 4 minutes on something to give you a very simple exercise, a practice. And I would like you to try this half a dozen times maybe in the next week. Because this will change your life if you can do it. What I'd like everybody to do is just take 30 seconds or so and see if you can find the Ka-ton. That is, see if you can find some idea of who you are and just be that. If you're a deeply sad person, then just find that and live in it and be sad. If you're a really joyful person, just find that and be joyful. If you're a person with a lot of will and purpose, just find that and be that. Just find as true an idea of yourself as you can and hold it for a few seconds. It's a thing without judgment. It's a thing where you throw away all your training. If you're trying to become something or do something, you forget all that for now. Because if you're trying to be something, you're not who you are. Who you are deep inside, you've been since before you came to this world. This katon is a tiny piece of your greater self that you brought into this world to guide you. So just get a sense, even a very slight minor sense of who you are, and hold it. Alright, this may be tough to do if you've never done it before. You may not even understand what it is. That's okay. Did anybody get a sense of something real? Something inside that they were being, yeah? It doesn't have to be amazing or huge. Just a small sense is enough. Good. Here's the next step. Think of something like using your words more, or getting in shape or something. Think of it and try and find that power. And most of the time what you'll find is that power is shutting down, it's hiding. Because something inside isn't yet connected to the idea. The idea is still coming from the thoughts. It's not coming from power. So what I'd like you to do is again find that sense of the katon and expand it into something. You can expand it into your chest or into your arm. You can expand it into the idea of getting in shape. Just find that katon and expand it into something. And every time it starts to get a little squiggly or fall apart, just let the ka-mai go and step back to the katon. Step back to the self. Hold it for a few seconds and then again gently expand it into whatever the thing is you've decided. Just do this over and over for 30 seconds. Alright, so that's the first two steps of a three-part exercise. You find the katon, you expand it to the ka-mai. That's all. Step 3 is a little more interesting. What I'd like you to do, and I realize you won't be able to do this well now, but you can play with it later, tonight, tomorrow, whenever, and take all the time you need. I want you to think of something you really want. If you want to make Elfpath something big enough that it can help everybody in the world, if you want to be an amazing teacher, if you want to be a really good shaper, if there's something that you really want, really, truly, deeply want, what I want you to do, find the katon, expand with the ka-mai, the integrity, into that I want. Right? If you want to be a good father, you find the power and you expand it to the idea of you as a good father. And I can guarantee you there isn't one of you that won't have trouble with this. Because the katon has never really been expanded. And so when you try and expand it into this idea, you're immediately going to find a conflict. The two will oppose one another. And if things aren't happening in your life, this is why. Think of, I've used this example before, a woman using the power of positive thinking, decides she's going to lose weight. And she takes off all her clothes and looks in the bathroom mirror at herself and she says, I'm skinny, I'm skinny. And she does it several times every day. And what she finds is over a month, she puts on a couple kilos. Well, I'll try harder. Next month she does it twice as much and she puts on even more weight. What's happening is that the power of positive thinking is only affecting the ideas. It's not getting into the guts. And so every time she's looking in the mirror, saying, I'm skinny, something inside is saying, nope, I can see you, you're fat. And so, I'm skinny, you're fat. I'm skinny, you're fat. And so every time she does this, she's getting a voice repeating to her, you're fat, you're fat, you're fat. And she's getting fatter. She's putting on weight instead of losing it. This kind of inner disagreement, it may not be you. It may be that your mother or grandmother or kids in school or somebody told you you were fat. But you've encoded this piece. So when you take this katon, expand it to the ka-mai, and try and weave it with integrity into the idea of being thin, what you're probably going to find is things get all squiggly. They start to twist up, tie in knots, get dense. And so what I want you to do, find the Ka-tone, the power, expand it with integrity into whatever idea of this thing that you really want. And as soon as you find it getting a little squiggly, the pieces fighting one another, you stop. And you go back to the power center. You go back to Ka-tone. You use Ka-mai, integrity. And you expand it again into this idea. And as soon as there's tension or opposition, you stop. And you go back to the Ka-tone. This is not the kind of thing where you force your way through. It's a bit like taming a wild animal. You get up close, and then when it gets skittish, you back off and let it relax. And you get up close again, and when it gets skittish, you back off. And you just keep doing this over and over. And what you'll find is after a day or two of playing with this, you're going to start to be able to expand that inner power into this idea. And you may not be able to hold it, but you'll be able to just touch it. And then, like a nervous animal, it skitters back up the tree. So you go back inside and you put some peanut butter on a cracker and you come back and you try again. And so you just do this over and over, gently, very, very gently. Ka-tone, power, Ka-mai, integrity, and then expand it into some idea. And if you can do that successfully every day, take the power, the real self, the true self, and expand it into what you want. Eventually you'll get those powerfully connected. What you really are will connect to what you really want, and you won't be fighting yourself anymore, and things will begin to happen in your life. So this is that 3-part exercise that I want you to practice over the next few weeks. And I really, as much as possible, would like everybody to talk to one another about it. Because some people are going to find something, some others, and as you talk, you're going to be able to build up information between you that you wouldn't find alone. So try this, communicate it, work with it. If possible, get used to using the words. And then see if your life starts to change. It might be useful once you've got the method down to pick something very simple that you want. It doesn't have to be fancy. A new pair of shoes, somebody to smile at you, something. And just practice this with simple things. Right? If you want to be the next world president, maybe that's a bit big to start with. Right? Find something simple and practice until you build up potential, ability. This world, to change topics here, for a very long time has been functioning as a third chakra world. A stable third chakra world. That is, social structures are all that matter. Marriage isn't a contract of being deeply in love. It's a social contract between people. Jobs are not passion and excitement. They're a contract that you have to show up and they have to pay you. The courts, the law, the structure, the rules of society, they're all structures in which we operate. And this world is moving from a third chakra to a fourth chakra, heart-based world. This is what it's trying to do right now. The Earth's heart is waking up, and that can only be done as people begin to wake up their hearts. So, another word here that is difficult. Love. Because it means way too many things to have any meaning at all. But when I speak of love here, I'm talking about the energy of the heart. The natural heart energy. When it's healthy and radiating, it's what you feel for people. Now, how many people can say they've been in love? I mean, not just a crush. Head over heels in love to where the world's pink and rosy and, the flowers are bright and everything's more amazing. Some of you have had that experience. This feeling is the fourth chakra opening for just a little while. When you fall in love with someone, there's so much energy moving, it reaches up and touches the heart, and the heart opens for a little while. But most people don't have the energy system in here stable. And so it doesn't feed enough energy up into the heart, and so they can't keep it. And what happens is after a day or a week or a month, you fall out of love. And by then, maybe you like the person, maybe you can build a relationship. But you fall out of love. That in-love feeling, for those of you who know it, is something that you can hold all the time. Morning, noon, and night. You can wake up feeling this kind of everything's brighter, everything's rosy. The lights are brighter, the flowers are prettier, just everything has this rosier glow, this in-love feeling. You can have this all the time. And you have this, well, the heart has to come online. You have to clear out what we're loosely calling heart muck, the messiness around the heart, so that this can expand and stay stable. But when it does, you can look at people and say, I love you, and really know what it means. It actually has meaning, it has substance to it. You can feel this deep sense of compassion and wonder all the time. You can be, in essence, in love all the time. And this is a big part of the reason we do what we're doing. Because this feeling is just so amazing. It's, for those of you who know the feeling of falling in love, you can have it always. And that's just so wonderful. It's worth a little work. It's a truly astounding thing when you can get there and hold it. Now, there's some other reasons that we do what we do. And one is obvious. You're changing your life for the better. If you're one of these people with a lot of anxiety and you can't go outside without being nervous, letting go of that anxiety will allow you to live a healthier life. If you self-criticize all the time, if you have trouble with your partner, if you're not sure about your kids or your parents, you're having trouble, learning what we teach you will help a lot. It's an important reason for doing what we do. Another is that you can have a life that actually means something. When I was a kid, you're young in this lifetime, my mother used to work in a nursing home. And she would always insist that we go along. And it was a terrible experience. It was awful for a sensitive child to be there. But it taught me a lot. And so I talked to a lot of these people and I listened to them. And what I found was again and again, they said, oh, I'm dying. I've only got a little time left. And, I regret this and this and this. I wish I'd done this. And they just would list all their regrets and all their sadness. And in all the time, the 3 or 5 years that I was going once or twice a week to this place, not once did I hear someone say, I really regret that I went to China and had this experience. I really regret that I learned this language. I regret that I tried snails. Nobody, not once did they say that. And every single time that they said this, it was something they hadn't tried. I never told this woman I loved her and she married somebody else. I never went to here. I never took this job because I didn't think I could do it. Every single one of these regrets. And they all had them. It was painful to be around. There are always regrets about not doing things. They had gotten old and they looked back and their lives seemed empty, pointless, purposeless. I haven't done anything in my entire life. It's been a complete waste. This is an important reason why we do what we do. When you begin to find the ka tone and express it with integrity, with ka mai, what you find is you begin to have connections with people that mean something, that feel something. There's honesty, there's integrity, there's passion there, there's purpose. You begin to say things to people that matter, and they begin to trust you. And so that when you say, you look really good today, they don't think, oh gosh, what do they want? They shine a little brighter for the compliment. If you say you did well, they say, oh, really? Well, you're an honest person, so cool. You begin to have something much more substantive. So the first reason, changing your own life. The second, a life with purpose. And the third is your connection to one another. That is, right now, we all fight all the time with people in our lives. It's a constant struggle, a fight for energy. Many books will talk about this. We're fighting for energy. We're using control dramas all the time. But once we begin to live with the ka mai from the ka tone, we begin to be able to communicate and hang out with people without constantly fighting. Our relationships can become truly amazing. It doesn't happen overnight. It can take a year or 2 years of working on it. But it becomes something more when our relationships with our lives, with our family, with our lovers, our co-workers, if they become substantial, honest, real. The next step is changing the community. Obviously, if you start living in power, you find something going on in your community, and you go out and lobby to have it changed, or start a group to have it changed, or start working to improve the things around you. You improve your children's school. You have something, create something different at work. You start changing the world around you. And then by extension, the last reason is that we're changing the entire world, both by changing ourselves and changing our community. Of course, it's going to affect the world. But more importantly than either of those two is that by opening up our heart and beginning to live from there, we're helping the world to open its heart and beginning to live from there. And we're creating a world where the heart is the center, rather than duty and obligation and rules and laws and social structures. That we'll be caring about one another in compassion, integrity, and purpose. Why do I say these things? That's not necessary. I say it for a very simple reason. I've heard several people say things like, well, I've got my life, my real life, and then I've got this Elfpath stuff that I do. And the two are separate bubbles. They don't mix. Oil and water, just keep them separate. And if with your sensitivity you see someone who's deeply sad or hurting, you don't go talk to them because, how could you know that they're sad? And so you just let them suffer. If you see someone who's doing an amazing job, you don't tell them so because you haven't learned to be honest and speak with integrity and power. Outside of Elfpath, you only have the inside of Elfpath. This is why I bring up this list of reasons why we do this. This is not about feeling good amongst ourselves. It's not about having a cool little code language that we can use and nobody else understands. This is about changing our lives, changing our relationships, changing our communities, and changing the world. And it all comes from this heart base. But see, this can only happen when you quit thinking of Elfpath as a class you take and start thinking of it as part of your life. Because Elfpath is leading you back to your true self, your ka-ton, the real self. And everything that you do in life is being shaped by who you truly are. And so the methods, the potential, the training that Elfpath is giving you is something that should be touching every part of your life. If you're taking an exam, you should be scanning the answers. If any of you do that, don't scan what's the right answer. Scan what does the professor want to hear. Just so you know. A lot of what's taught as history isn't quite right. So scan what does the professor want to hear. If you're talking to a lover or a potential lover, you want to be scanning everything they say with a truth sense. Because if you find out they're lying to you, it's better to stop right now than to get involved with them and go for 6 months or a year and then recognize they've been lying to you the whole time. If you see someone is hurting and something in you says go talk to them, go talk to them. Now, if you have to walk up and say, all right, if you'll excuse me, I'm in a course called Elfpath, and I'm training to be a psychic, and just so you know, from all of my training, no, that's drama, that's silliness. What you do is you look in here, the ka-ton, the sense of power deep inside, and you scan what do they need to hear. Maybe what they need is a touch on the shoulder and the words, it'll get better. And if that's what they need, if that's what you sense, then you do it. Maybe a complete stranger. You walk by the table, you touch them on the shoulder and say, it'll get better. And you walk away. And maybe a burden or a pain or a trouble they've been having for months or years will just fall away. Maybe someone who would have committed suicide that night, or, beat their children or done something that they would have regretted, won't. Because you were able to touch that piece. It doesn't have to be fancy. It doesn't have to be artful. I helped a person a great amount at one point, a woman in Hawaii, by telling her she had ugly shoes. Because it scanned. It was a very powerful and clear scan. And so I went over and said, I think those are probably the ugliest shoes I've ever seen. And I walked away. And it turned out, because I'd approached it this way, she was able to trust me, because she also thought they were ugly shoes. And we ended up talking for 30 or 45 minutes, and I changed her life. Her entire direction in life changed because I told her her shoes were ugly. I didn't walk over and say, look, I'm really an angel and I'm a lot older than you think. And, based on all of my wisdom, I'm going to tell you this. I just said, hey, those are ugly shoes. She didn't need to know who I am. And every time I'm out, I do this constantly. If I buy something and the person behind the counter is having a bad day, I look at how they need to be touched, and I touch them in that way. It may be just a word. It may be stopping and talking for a few minutes. It may just be eye contact, because they don't feel like anybody notices them. But this kind of thing gets integrated into every part of our lives. The ka-tone, the fundamental self, the real self is who you are. And who you are has to be expressed all the time. If you're only expressing who you are when you're around Elfpath people, and the rest of the time you're wearing a mask or pretending, your life's going to suck. You're going to have this tiny part of you that's real and the rest of you that's plastic. There's no traction, no way to get a hold of it. And so you just work from integrity all the time. And if it's someone who's not ready to hear about this stuff, you scan it. It won't be right to tell them, so you don't tell them. All you tell them is, hey, I have a feeling that, it's going to get better. I have a feeling that you shouldn't place that bet. It doesn't have to be fancy. It's just acting from integrity, power and integrity, the kamai, the making, the acting, from that powerful self. It's really easy if you're a sensor to see how this works, because there's lots of things you can sense. Now, I've had very skilled psychics tell me that this is wrong. You shouldn't ever use your psychic gifts. In essence, it's like being in a world full of blind people and suddenly waking up one day and being able to see. And it's so much easier to get things out of the cabinet or walk up and down stairs or even take a shower. And what these people have told me is you should blindfold yourself and walk around blindfolded all the time, because that's how the rest of the people do it. And then only in special occasions, when you have permission from everybody, do you take the blindfold off and use your eyes. And I don't know if any of you can scan that, but that is clinically insane. To intentionally handicap yourself, to make your life miserable, for fear that you might do something wrong. Just leave your senses on all the time. Just feel all the time. If you're a source, it's easy to see how you can make a difference. When you're in a room with two people fighting, just ground the energy out of the room and watch everything calm down. If you've got someone who's really sad, kind of bubble up a little energy of joy and watch them change. You can use this all the time. And if you're a shaper, likewise, there are so many things you can shape. Here, let me reach out and just help that person. Right? They've got all this sadness. They don't know why. Let me reach inside and just unlock it so that they can look inside and see the sadness. Oh, there it is. And then they can find it and fix it. You're not reaching in and controlling their mind to make them a slave. This isn't some big mysterious thing. If they were a deep and intimate friend, if they were someone you loved, and you wanted to help them have a little more peace in their life, there are things you might do. And this is all you're doing. You're finding little things that will help them to live their life with greater ka-tone and ka-mai. You don't know what those are. You're simply reaching out and giving them a little something to make their life easier. It's, imagine a baby in a crib and a mosquito lands on it and it's biting it. If you leave it there, eventually a child's going to have some huge swollen itching place and it doesn't have the dexterity to scratch it yet. It's a baby. So what you do is you stop the mosquito from attacking the child. It's no more nor less than that. You use your shaping ability in small ways to make people's lives easier. You don't have to talk about it unless it scans, but you use your gifts all the time. There is... we'll skip past that. There are a lot of television shows now about psychics, about metas, about other lives. And some of them make it seem really horrible. There's a television show called Eli Stone. This guy's an attorney who has visions, but the visions are so real, he can't tell them from real life. And in the middle of a business meeting, he's diving under the table and shouting there's a bomb. And he's having a very hard time with his daily life because it just takes over everything. There's a show called Ghost Whisperer where a woman talks to ghosts, and she spends her entire life in terror that somebody's going to find out and she's going to get branded a witch and it's all going to go awful. Joan of Arcadia, she hears voices, she talks to God. The Dead Zone, I think that went for 6 seasons or something, about a man who was a psychic, and his gift was so strong that he was often locked in his house. He didn't have many friends. It was just too overwhelming. So there are these shows that tell us that, oh, it's going to be terrible if you use your metagifts. You have to keep them locked up and hidden. Don't let anybody find out. I believed this for a long time, that we had to be careful. But then I grew up 30 years ago when the world was much more repressed. In the Midwest of the U.S., where it's much more repressed, raised by fundamentalist parents who thought I was partially the devil. And so in that case, I had to be a little more careful. But in this day and age, everybody's hungry for the meta. If you can talk about it even a little, it doesn't have to be scary. They don't burn people at the stake in the Western world anymore. It doesn't happen. They're not going to drown you to see if you're a witch. This stuff doesn't happen. And so I'd like you to look, instead of all the negatives, look at some of the positives. There is a television show called The Dog Whisperer. In fact, this guy is just very good with reading dogs and dog behavior. But it's more than just looking at surface cues. When he talks, in every episode, he talks about the energy. Look at the energy between you and your dog. Your dog is feeling this, right? He's using empathy, animal empathy. He's talking about meta gifts using animals. And he does it so in power. He will take dogs that they're thinking of killing, right, putting to sleep because they're so out of control, they're attacking the neighbors, they're attacking the baby, and in a short time turn them into a faithful and loving friend to the family. He uses his meta gift to do it. And this isn't fiction. He's well known in LA. He goes to people's houses, they pay him a lot of money to solve these out of control dog problems. He uses his meta gifts to shape his world. Specifically, he does it with dogs, but to shape his world and make it a better place. There's a television show called Crossing Over with John Edward. I don't think it's on anymore. And this guy talks to dead people. Now, there are a lot of people who do what he does, and it's just called cold reading. They've got little microphones in the audience listening to people's comments, and they're just feeding them lies. But what John Edward does is real. If you can scan it at a deep enough level, it's not just real, it's astoundingly beautiful. You can watch people in every single episode come in terrified and upset and frustrated and just worried that their loved ones are dead or in hell or something, and just leave with a sense of peace. You can just watch all this tension fall away. It is such a beautiful thing. I saw an episode at one point where a family's daughter had died. She was 14, 15. She was just a kid. She was a cheerleader. And the parents came, and he talked to them for a while, and they wrote down everything he said. And he told them all these things about their daughter, and they were so impressed. And they wrote it all down, and there was one piece they didn't understand, but, they wrote it down anyway. It was weeks later. One of the little girl's friends was over and looking through the list of notes that John Edward had said, and she started crying and just bawling at the table because John had told them that their daughter was grateful for the spirit stick. And they didn't know what that was. They had no idea what that meant. Apparently amongst cheerleaders there's a stick, a decorated stick of some kind called a spirit stick, which is the energy, the spirit, the emotion of the cheerleaders and the team. And after this little girl had died, because she was a cheerleader, the other cheerleaders had stolen it from the school. And when no one was looking, had hidden it in the casket. And nobody knew except these 3 little girls who didn't go to the whole John Edward thing. Nobody knew about it. And the people actually thought John was wrong. All right, he missed one here. We don't know what this means. But it turns out that what he said was really true. This little girl was deeply grateful for the spirit stick. And so weeks after he talked to the family, he was healing the friends of this little girl, helping them to understand that death isn't the end, it's just crossing on to what's next. And so they came back on the show, and in a later episode they said, well, do you remember this? And the cheerleader. And they told the story of the spirit stick. And what he does has such a deep, powerful beauty to it that he takes all this pain and fear and just helps people let it go, to become really at peace with the fact that we all cross over eventually. There's a show that was only on for one season called Past Life. I think society just wasn't ready for it yet, or the marketing departments weren't ready for it yet. But this woman actually helped people to recall past lives and used it working with the local police force to solve crimes. And so each episode there would be someone who was going through some trouble, and she would help them to remember the past life that was creating the trouble, and the information would come up, and they would solve some crime or resolve some problem that otherwise they couldn't find a way through. And so, while some of these are fiction and some of these are real, what's important to understand is that they're beautiful and amazing and not painful. The shows like Ghost Whisperer, where someone lives in terror that someone will find out their gift, it doesn't work like that. I have almost never in this lifetime gone up to a complete stranger and said, all right, I can do all these things. I don't know if I ever have. But I use my gift all the time. I sat on an airplane with a man and told him about his children and the trouble they were having. He said, how can you know that? I just had a feeling. But he was so grateful, and I told him about what was going on with his wife and how his marriage was going to fail if he didn't stop traveling so much. And he said, yeah, I've had that feeling, but now that you've confirmed it, I'm going to make a change in my life. In the TV show Crossing Over, I worked with a woman in Hawaii. And she said, hey, I've heard some of what you can do. And I told her exactly what she needed to hear. But she didn't want to hear it, so she got angry and bitter and yelled at me and stormed away. And she actually went to see John Edward in Crossing Over on the Big Island in Hawaii a couple of weeks later. And she came back and found me and apologized. Because apparently her mother and father had come and told John Edward a message, and he told her, you're not going to want to hear this, but... and told her all of the same things I said in the same order, exactly like that. And she came back to me and said, I apologize. I kind of thought John Edward was a fake, and if you hadn't told me those things, I wouldn't have been able to believe him. She said, you've changed my life. It's going to be different because of this. There was a time, and I think it was back in 2003, so not that long ago, about a decade, 2002, where I was still trying to be cautious about everything I said, because some people just aren't ready, and because I was raised by fundamentalists and with a lot of repression and so on. And it was back then in 2002, 2003, where I said, you know what? I'm pretty good with this scanning thing. And so if I scan that it needs to be said, I'm going to say it. I don't care what people think. And I wrote this down. All right, I'm going to do this. And I think it's going to really hurt. And I think in 6 months' time, I won't have any friends left. And I expected it to be terrible. I really thought it'd be awful. And what I found 3 months later, when I looked back at this promise that I'd made and kept, I had people in my house every night, just dropping by to hang out because they thought I was great. Not because they wanted some vision or something. They thought I was really cool. Here's someone who speaks to me honestly. Here's someone who listens. Here's someone who actually has, good stuff to say. I was surrounded by people. I was surrounded by friends. My relationships that up till then had been good. I insist people have a little integrity when they talk to me. They got so much better. Everything in my life improved when I began to take that ka tone and express it in the making, in the ka mai, in everything. Now, there's a lot of people I've talked to that I've never told any of this stuff, but every time it's scanned to me in the last decade, I've done it. I don't care who it is. I could be talking to the queen of a country or king of a country. I don't care. If it scans to say a thing, I'm going to say it. Gandhi was said to have seen the Queen of England at one point, and he went in his little sarong or sari or whatever, the little, just, over the shoulder toga kind of outfit that he wore, and little sandals. And somebody there in the Queen's chamber said, "Don't you think you're a bit underdressed to meet the Queen?" And Gandhi said, "Nope, I think she's wearing enough clothing for the both of us." Because it scanned to him. He didn't think, well, I might offend somebody and she's rich and famous. He just said it. The Queen is said to have asked him, I think in that same interview, "So what do you think of Western civilization?" And Gandhi's response is, "I think it would be a good idea." This is integrity. This is the Kamai, to reach from the power, the real self, and simply express whatever scans to you. And it didn't come across as an insult or cruel. People who didn't understand it laughed and thought it was funny. People who did understand it gained a real degree of wisdom from it. And this is what I want everyone to take away from our talking tonight, or my talking, is that what the Elfpath is teaching is not a course, not a little bubble over here. It's here. It is the self, the real self, the integrity self. It is the powerful, real center of you. And if it's the center, then it's connected to everything you do. Don't separate it. If it's the center of everything you do, make sure it's in everything you do. You don't have to tell people why or how, but if you feel a thing needs said, say it. If you sense a thing needs done, do it. Right? I sense that I need to move that chair at this outdoor cafe. Okay, I do it. I don't know why. I don't know that an hour later, a bicycle swerves off the road and somebody goes through where that chair was. And if it had been there, they would have hit it and flipped over and broken their neck and spent the next 20 years in a wheelchair. I don't know this. But I do it because it scans. Act from the ka tone with the making, the kamai, in everything, all the time, without hesitation. With every friend, with every acquaintance, with every stranger, with every teacher, with parents, with siblings. Always ka tone, kamai. The self, the expressing of the self, the making. Always, in everything, all the time. Don't let these be separate. The vast majority of people, when they're small kids, are told this is how you have to be. Parents rarely say, all right, decide for yourself and make a good decision. When you do what they want, they say you're a good kid. And when you don't do what they want, they say you're a bad kid. And you don't know why you're good one day and bad the next. You don't know why they're giving you treats one day and yelling at you the next, or beating you or locking your room or whatever they do. You don't know. You do what makes sense to you, and you get yelled at or beaten. You do what makes sense to you the next day, and you get rewarded. You learn very quickly not to do what makes sense to you. You learn to do what it takes to make them happy. And so 20, 30, 50 years later, you're still not doing what makes sense to you. You're trying to do what makes people happy. And since you don't know what makes people happy, nobody can really know that until you're really, really sensitive. What happens is that people create a mask, a costume. They put on, face paint of a clown and a big spotted floppy uniform and big shoes. Or they put on the metal faceplate and metal bodywork and big sword of a knight. Or they pick up some archetype and make it a costume. And then perhaps you've seen the bumper stickers. What would Jesus do? Or what would Chuck Norris do? And they spend the rest of their life doing this. All right, I'm going to be a big shiny knight. What would a big shiny knight do? And they spend their entire life responding from the costume, acting out the mask. And they wonder when they end up at 80 in a nursing home why their life has seemed empty and pointless, why their relationships never worked out, why they feel like it's all been a waste and they haven't gotten anything from their life. It's because they've been acting from the mask and not from the real self. Don't wait till you're 80 or 90. Start now. Start in little things. If it scans to do something that's too big and scary, don't do it. But 10 minutes later, when it scans to do a small thing, do it. Start with little things and practice, and in time grow more confident. And if you have the intestinal fortitude, the guts, to do what I did back in 02-ish, you'll probably find what I did. That you're going to be surrounded by people. The people are going to be so impressed. They're going to really love you. They're going to want to be there. You're going to have more friends, more lovers, better relationships, whatever. It's actually going to be good for you. But you won't know this until you try. And you can't try it once. Like anything else, we get better by practicing. The first time you tried to walk, you fell on your butt, or you hit your head and you bawled. Somebody picked you up and told you it'd be okay. And, a little later you tried walking again. And people held your hands and supported you. And eventually you took a couple of chubby leg steps and everybody cheered and celebrated. And it was pretty lousy walking, I can tell you. When you're, this tall, you suck at walking. And they're still cheering and celebrating. Because you tried. You took a couple small steps. And this is the attitude you need to bring into this. The ka tone, the ka mai, the expressing, the integrity. Is that at first you're going to take little chubby leg baby steps and fall on your butt and feel stupid. But what you do is you celebrate. Like a parent. Yay, you took your first steps. Good job. And you feel good about this. You feel great. Even if you didn't get it right. Even if you didn't get what you want. Even if it didn't seem like things worked out. You celebrate it. And you do this over and over. And by the time you've taken 10,000 steps, you're pretty good at it. And you may find that 5 or 10 years later, I've had this happen, someone comes back to you that you thought you screwed up. I've had people tell me, oh, you ruined my life, you're an idiot, I hate you, don't ever talk to me again, and walked away. And 10 years later come back and say, I don't know how you knew those things you said, but at the time I wasn't ready to hear them, but it's exactly what I needed. I'm so grateful that I met you 10 years ago and that you told me what you did. Even if you think you screwed something up, you don't know. You won't know sometimes till years later how important it was that you said what you did. Somewhere, I probably lost them over the years. I had a stack like this of letters from people saying, you have changed my life. I'm so glad I met you. I've never lived until I met you. This thing you told me, it saved my life. It saved my marriage. It saved my kids. Stack of these. Huge stack of these letters. And, in the rougher times of my life, those letters really helped me to get through. And they didn't happen because I said, oh, I'm going to be great and save people. It happened because I said, all right, ka tone, the real self. I sense I need to say this. Well, then the integrity, the ka mai, I say it. And over time, I have ended up working with thousands, literally thousands of people. And sometimes I get, oh, that's nice, that helps. But you might be amazed how many times I've heard, I've never told anybody else this, but, and then they tell me, and I give them what they need. Or how many times I've heard, you have changed my life, you have saved my life. I'm only alive because you were there. You made everything better. Out of the last 10 years, you're the most amazing thing to happen to me. And I gave them 10 minutes. There's a fellow in Italy. Italians are incredibly family-oriented, and this boy lived in the States. And he felt he had to go back and visit his family. And it was very tough being that far away from his family, not being around this close-knit Italian thing. And he was sure that was why he came back. But I met him on that trip. And I spoke with him for all of 10 minutes. And he said, family is the most important thing in the world to me. And I thought it was visiting family was why I came back. He said, but the 10 minutes I have spent with you have meant more to me than the entire month I have spent here with my family. You've changed my life. And each and every one of you can do this. All of you. Not by being big and famous and noisy and outstanding. Just by being yourself. It's not hard work. You just look inside and say, who am I? And then you be that. Right? Who am I right now? And then you be that. Who am I right now? And then you be that. Excuse me. And then you be that. It's that easy. You don't have to figure out what's the Elfpath method, what's the right way. All you have to do is be you, which should be the simplest thing in the world for any of us. Now, you mentioned today that sometimes being you is a very hard thing, because sometimes when we do something false long enough, it carves a deep track in us. And it's actually hard work to step out of the bad habits and get into being who you truly are. It's hard work at first. But learning to walk was hard work at first. And most of you now don't even think about it. You're 9/10 asleep and you get up in the middle of the night and walk to the toilet and walk back. Walking's not a problem anymore. And the work I do and the work that you can do is the same. I can get up in the middle of the night, 9/10 asleep, walk down here and see someone, tell them exactly what they need, and walk back upstairs and not remember doing it. But it will be exactly what they need. And each and every one of you can do this. Each and every one of you can integrate these things into your life starting today, starting now. Just be yourself, ka-ton. And when it scans to say a thing, say it. When it scans to do a thing, do it. And when it scans to think a thing, think it. When it scans to feel a thing, feel it. And when it scans to keep your mouth shut, you keep your mouth shut. It's that easy. You just be yourself, you scan out how to act, and you do it. Ka-ton, ka-mai. The self, the expressing of the self. That's it. Now, just a couple of minutes left in this hour we allotted. Were there any questions? We'll get there. There are a lot of words we need. They want a word for love. There are a lot of words that we need, and I don't want to inundate you, to flood you with thousands of new words. I'd like you to use the ones I'm giving you. The metai, the ken, the ka-ton, the ka-mai. Use these, get used to them, integrate them, and we'll give you the new ones as we go. What else?
Someone asked if there's a limit to what they can get. If they want things now and they get all of those, are they going to use things later?
That's 3 separate questions. I'll address the ones that matter. Can you get anything you want? The answer is both yes and no. Some things aren't good for you. If you came to this life with the purpose of learning about family, and you want to leave your family and go hike in the Himalayas and become a monk, you probably won't get that. You might be able to force it, but you probably won't. Your life will conspire against you because the ka-ton, the integrity self, has things that it wants, things that you encoded in it before you came into this lifetime. And if you try to get things that are out of harmony with that ka-ton set of imperatives, you'll find your life opposing you. But generally speaking, what you'll find is that if you're acting from a place of power, a place of the real self, of the ka-ton, you can get almost anything. If it truly scans to you, and if you truly want it. It's possible you don't want it. It's possible that some part of you is afraid of being rich, because you might become a bad person. And it's possible that there have been lifetimes where you have gotten rich and you've become a bad person. It's possible that in this lifetime, if you got rich enough, it would happen again. And a piece of you knows that. And so it will try to protect you. And you may get to the point where you're wealthy enough to be comfortable, but never drive a Lamborghini or have all your purses made by Gucci or Prada, because it's not truly what you need. It's not truly good for you. It would leave you worse off. And ultimately, your life, your real self, wants you to be healthy. It wants you to be happy. So as long as what you want is in harmony with who you truly are. By holding this, you can get it. Ka ton, ka mai, and then expanding it into the thing that you want. One more. Someone here. Come. Who is it? Well, then I'll weave this closed. There is much that Elfpath can teach you about living. But this isn't a religion. It isn't a cult. It's not going to give you things to believe in. It's not going to give you a list of truths, a list of rules you have to follow. This is not a third chakra program. It's a fourth chakra. This is a program that will help you clear all of the messiness out of your guts and begin to open your heart and really live from compassion, from power, from integrity. And the only way to get there is to follow the simple steps, to practice, to slowly grow in trust in yourself, in faith in your gifts, in gentle, loving, supportive awareness, and communicating those things when it scans to you. And if you do this, your life will begin to have a much greater purpose, a much greater meaning, a much greater depth. And someday when you do cross over, because you will, you're not going to live in this body forever and you wouldn't want to. Someday when you do cross over, you look back with a great joy and a great love and a great celebration at all of the wonder and magic you've had in your life. It's said that you can't take it with you, that nothing in this life goes on. But there are two things that do. One is memories, be they good or bad. And if you screw it all up and everybody hates you, you'll take that memory with you. If it's something truly astounding, you'll take that memory with you. And the other is love. Now, this isn't the cereal box greeting card kind of love. I'm talking about the powerful heart energy. Once you create that, it never goes away. Once you come up to a place where you start generating it, it gets banked. It gets stored in a sort of eternal bank somewhere and will always be there for you. When you build this love, it never goes away. You take that with you. It's worth it to take the time and to make the effort to learn the basics. It's worth it to apply them to your life. And it's really, really worth it to begin to integrate it into every facet, every phase, every aspect of your life. And eventually, if you work at it, you will come to say, as I do, that there's this Elfpath stuff, the meta, that is your real life. And then there's that physical life that you play at, because it's what you're doing this time around. But you're going to come back and do it again and do it again and do it again lots of times. There's a real you that goes on. And then there's the physical life that you play with. It's not real life in Elfpath. It's the real you, the ka-tone. And then whatever game you decide to play. Because life is about play. It's about celebration. It's about learning and fun. Right? So practice and apply these things in every aspect of your life. Discover this ka-tone. Begin to express it with ka-mai. In your sleeping, in your waking, in your thoughts, in your dreams, in your communications, in your relationships, in your job. Begin to integrate it and watch it change. Watch your life go from just okay to truly astounding, surrounded by people you love and who love you. Amazing and powerful and beautiful and graceful in ways you haven't begun to imagine. And it won't happen overnight. This is a punch 10,000 times kind of story. Do it. Little bits, little bits, little bits. A tiny bit of theory and a lot of practice. And watch the astounding results blossom. Good night.
Thanks for answering the question. They were very enthusiastic.